Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, in the quiet farming community of Plainfield, Wisconsin. On the surface, Plainsfield was the sort of place where time seemed to stand still. It was a small town of just a few hundred people, where gossip carried faster than the wind, and everyone's business was everyone else's. But behind the closed doors of the Gein household, a darkness was brewing that would one day shock the world. Ed's father, George, was an alcoholic who never managed to hold down a job. He drifted between carpentry, insurance work, and farming, leaving his family in near poverty. His mother, Augusta, was the dominant figure in the household. She was fiercely religious, prone to fire and brimstone sermons, and obsessed with sin, especially the sins of women. She preached to her sons that all women, apart from herself, were corrupt and instruments of the devil. Sex was evil, desire was shameful, and purity could only be maintained through obedience to God. Augusta's word was law. Ed grew up timid and withdrawn, clinging to his mother with a devotion that bordered on worship. His older brother Henry, on the other hand, questioned Augusta's teachings as he got older. He worried about how deeply Ed relied on her, how he seemed incapable of functioning without her approval. In 1944, tragedy struck when Henry died during a brush fire on the farm. The details were strange. Ed had led police to his brother's body in an area that hadn't burned, and Henry's head showed unexplained bruises. The death was ruled accidental, but whispers circulated. Some wondered if Ed had ensured that nothing would stand between him and his mother. Just a year later, Augusta herself died after a series of strokes. To Ed, it was the greatest loss of his life. To outsiders, he appeared to grieve like any son would, but inside, his world had shattered. He boarded up the rooms Augusta had lived in, leaving them untouched as shrines to her memory. The rest of the house fell into decay. Ed lived in filth, surrounded by newspapers, rotting food, and junk piled high in every corner. The once busy farm collapsed into ruin, the fields lying fallow, and the barn sagging with neglect. Still, Plainsfield saw him as harmless. He did odd jobs around town, fixed machinery, shoveled snow, and even babysat for neighbors' children. He was polite, soft-spoken, and shy, the kind of man people pitied more than feared. But while the town dismissed him as a harmless loner, Ed was sinking deeper into a private world of obsession. He began reading pulp magazines obsessively, particular stories about death, anatomy, and crimes that shocked the nation. He collected books about headhunters, cannibalism, and even Nazi medical experiments. The macabre fascinated him, and late at night, it stirred something inside him. He started visiting local cemeteries, digging up freshly buried bodies of women who reminded him of his mother. By lantern light, he would pry open caskets and drag corpses back to his farmhouse. What happened inside those walls would remain hidden for years. Ed dissected the bodies, peeling away skin, crafting masks, lampshades, belts, and furniture from human remains. He carefully tanned skin the way others might cure leather. He preserved body parts in boxes, some arranged like trophies. His ultimate goal was grotesque. He wanted to fashion a woman suit, a full-body skin outfit that would allow him to become his mother, to keep her presence alive by wearing her likeness. For years, Ed's secret was unnoticed, but Plainsfield was about to wake up to a nightmare. In 1954, Mary Hogan, a brash tavern owner, disappeared without a trace. Blood was found on the floor of the bar, but no body was ever recovered. Some townsfolk suspected foul play, but no one imagined Ed Gein was responsible. He even made grim jokes about her vanishing, telling people, "She's not missing, she's up at the farm right now." Most laughed it off, thinking it was just Ed being weird. Then, on November 16, 1957, Bernice Warden, owner of the local hardware store, vanished in broad daylight. Her son, Frank Warden, a deputy sheriff, discovered the store empty. The cash register was gone, and blood stained the floor. A sales receipt was found on the counter. It showed that Ed Gein had purchased antifreeze that morning. Frank immediately suspected him. Police went to the Gein farm that evening. The property looked abandoned, the house dark and sagging under the weight of neglect. As investigators entered, their flashlights cut through shadows that concealed horrors beyond imagination. In a shed, they found Bernice Warden's body. She was strung up by her ankles, gutted like a deer, her head missing. Inside the house, the discoveries grew more grotesque with every room. They found chairs upholstered in human skin, bowls made from skulls, masks crafted from faces, a belt fashioned from nipples, and a shoebox full of preserved female genitalia. Mary Hogan's face was discovered among the grisly collection, preserved like a mask. Everywhere they looked, human remains had been transformed into household items. The seasoned officers who conducted the search were shaken. Some were sick on the spot. Others would carry the images for the rest of their lives. When arrested, Ed spoke with calm detachment. He admitted to killing Bernice Warden and Mary Hogan, but claimed much of his collection came from grave robbing. He would go on to describe his nocturnal trips to cemeteries, how he would dig up corpses of women who reminded him of Augusta, and how he used their bodies to create his woman suit. He spoke of his mother often, explaining that he longed to bring her back in some form, to keep her with him always. In 1958, Gein was declared insane and committed to Central State Hospital. For years, he lived quietly under psychiatric care, never causing trouble. In 1968, he was ruled competent to stand trial. He was convicted of Bernice Warden's murder, but once again judged insane and returned to the institution. Ed Gein lived out his days in custody until his death on July 26, 1984, from respiratory failure at the age of 77. Plainfield never fully recovered. The Gein farmhouse, a grotesque monument to his crimes, was burned to the ground in 1958 under suspicious circumstances, likely by locals who wanted it erased. Yet the memory of Ed Gein lingers. His crimes blurred the line between the human and the monstrous, reminding the world that sometimes the most terrifying figures don't emerge from crowded cities or dark alleys, but from the isolation of small towns, hidden in plain sight.